now. If Craig Thompson thinks police are finished with him, he's kidding himself. And as we know, he has a history of kidding himself. The disgraced MP from the Central Coast is officially living on another planet. We saw it at the weekend when he lied to Laurie Oakes. Next week we will see him lie in our parliament. What a disgrace. And this afternoon we have a new development in the Craig Thompson scandal. In the past week, detectives from Victoria have been working in Sydney, collecting evidence. They've also taken a statement from at least one person, a bloke who is sitting here with me in the studio. His name is Michael Smith. He's a former police officer, turned radio host, and he's been interviewed by Victorian detectives in Sydney on Friday of last week. Michael Smith joins me. Good afternoon, Michael.
G'day there, Ben.
Thank you for coming in.
Pleasure.
What did you tell police?
That I'd made extensive inquiries about Craig Thompson. I used to work for an organisation that had published some information about Mr Thompson, credit card details, that sort of thing. Mr Thompson sued them for defamation. He subsequently withdrew his suit for defamation, told everybody he settled it, told me he settled it, said to me that he was happy with the outcome, that he gave the inference that he had got money, a payout from the Fairfax organisation.
Let's go back, in fact. Who was the Sydney Morning Herald journalist who started all of this?
A bloke called Davis, I think, and he had been given a heap of documents from the Health Services Union, published them, believed them to be true. Turns out they all absolutely were true. Thompson did what heaps of people do, which is you sue for defamation, you ultimately settle, and then say to the world, look, I settled that matter, it's all gone away, I was very happy with the payout. He thought that would be the end of it. The silly bugger withdrew his suit too late. Blokes like Richardson and others, Graham Richardson, were saying, settle it for Christ's sakes. They knew what was in all the documents that would be revealed. Thompson was too late in withdrawing his suit, so the Sydney Morning Herald got a hold of his phone records, his credit card records, hotel chits, just a range of devastating stuff that put him right in the slot for procuring those services from the hookers. You
then ended up quizzing him about all of these records. I'm going to play some of that in just a moment. I've now got my hands on all of that interview, and it's fascinating listening, considering that we've just heard Craig Thompson on Saturday morning with Laurie Oakes when he's had all of these months to prepare. But this was a different story on the 1st of August when you spoke to him. But before I play that, how did you come to be interviewed by Victorian detectives on Friday last week?
They've been in touch over the past couple of months. The interview, obviously, the record of the interview that I conducted with Mr Thompson on the 1st of August was of great interest to them because he made a lot of partial admissions in that interview, but he also said a number of other things that turned out to be demonstrably untrue. So the police who, let's be clear about what's happening in Victoria, this matter has been allocated to working detectives, good hard coppers, and I know the routine down in Victoria because I used to be a copper down there. These blokes would be charged with neglect of duty if they didn't pursue what has been reported to them by the Health Services Union, and that is a large amount of money that's gone missing. Hundreds of thousands of bucks gone.
You say on the bottom of your statement, well, it's I suppose it's quite standard on the bottom of a statement like this with police, I hereby acknowledge that this statement is true and correct, and I make it in the belief that a person making a false statement in the circumstances is liable to the penalties of perjury. Would you like to see Craig Thompson do the same thing? Would you like to see him sit down and swear a statement as well based on what he told Laurie Oakes on Saturday?
Yeah, precisely right. I had to do it. When I made my statement to police, I said exactly what you've just said there. It's true and correct, and I'd stand up in court and say, I swear by Almighty God, this is true and correct. Craig, you do the same thing, mate. It's not hard. Go down to the shopping centre. There's a JP with a card table there. Just go and swear a statutory declaration.
As a former copper, obviously you've got a lot of respect for these detectives in Victoria and what they're doing.
Yeah.
Who else were they talking to last week?
Well, look, I wouldn't want to hand over the whole brief to Mr Thompson at present, but you would imagine that the police would make diligent inquiries of the premises at which Mr Thompson is alleged to have procured these services. You would imagine that the police would go and have a yarn to the proprietors of those places. Look, there's another thing here, though, that a lot of coppers would be well and truly aware of. I am. And that is, and I hope this sends a cold shiver up Mr Thompson's spine because he deserves it, that on the old credit card chit, the credit card voucher, the old ones that they used to swipe the machine on, where Mr Thompson's credit card was present, we got the carbon copy imprint of that. I've seen the voucher. I know it exists. It's impregnated with a chemical. And I'm giving nothing away because we've got new credit card vouchers now, right? But in the old ones that Thompson is alleged to have signed, it's impregnated with a chemical that reacts with the amino acids in your fingerprints. You put your finger down there, bang. It's there, it's indelible. It's developed by the presence of a catalyst called ninhydrin, another chemical. Those exhibits still exist. They're still there. The fingerprints will be there or they won't be there, Craig.
So the idea that Craig Thompson has spread around there that, look, this is pretty much done now. Fair Work Australia did their report and it didn't really suit the Commonwealth DPP, all the different spins that he's put on it. You're saying it ain't over by a long shot?
No, absolutely not. Look, there are divisional detectives or detectives from the squad down in Victoria who are right on the tail of this case. Let's forget about Craig Thompson for a sec. What they are investigating is a credible report from the Health Services Union that hundreds of thousands of dollars of its money has gone missing. Victoria Police have got a report. It's a crime reported in Victoria. It's been allocated a number. It's in the brief book. These detectives had been more strife than Ned Kelly if they didn't bring the matter before a court of competent jurisdiction where they have a defendant in the slot, like they do, or an offender, like they do in the case here, Mr. Thompson.
I'm talking to Michael Smith, former Fairfax radio broadcaster, who interviewed Craig Thompson on the 1st of August last year, and this is interesting considering the interview with Laurie Oakes on Saturday. Let's have a little listen to just some of that conversation. This is Michael Smith talking to Craig Thompson on the 1st of August last year.
I'm saying your signature is on that voucher. Your driver's licence number has been transcribed onto the back of it. How did all that get there?
Well, it's I'm not saying that's my signature for a start. That's the first thing that's there.
Okay, so somebody forged your signature for the procurement of those services and produced your credit card?
Well, it certainly wasn't me.
He took about a week or so, didn't he, between agreeing to do that interview with you and actually doing it. Tell us the background there.
I'd been at him for weeks, in fact for months, because I had all the detail in front of me. I'd go on the air and say, this man is a thief and this man is a liar. And I based the assertion that the man is a liar on him swearing a false affidavit in the court proceedings between him and Fairfax. The assertion that the man is a thief, I based on the evidence I had in front of me that he'd taken the money from the Health Services Union.
From someone else?
Well, from the Health Services Union. That's where from the workers. That's where it came from. So I just week in and week out say it on the air. The man's a thief. The man's a liar. I had a big interview with Doug Eaton, the mayor of the Wyong Council, one Friday arvo. And I mentioned the Prime Minister's name in it a fair bit and said that I'd written to the Prime Minister at that time, which was in July, and said, do you continue to back this bloke, Craig Thompson? Now, I suspect her office got onto Thompson and said, you got to shut this bloke Smith down.
Next thing, he called you.
Correct.
And a week later, he was on the air. We're going to hear more of that interview in just a moment. I'm joined by Michael Smith, former Fairfax radio broadcaster who conducted this interview with Craig Thompson in August of last year. We'll have more of that and him in just a moment. Guest in the studio is Michael Smith, former broadcaster with the Fairfax Radio Network, and now a free agent, I suppose.
Correct.
You are very, you are very passionate about bringing down Craig Thompson.
Turn it up.
Come on, let's be honest.
No, I'm very passionate about the poor buggers that are going to work every day, cleaning out hospitals, working in those bloody furnace-like laundries underneath. They paid their dough over $600 here, and this mongrel, like the smug, you can't say that word, the smug bar steward.
Oh, let me just say this: the former copper in you though,
Yeah.
you want to catch him. He's a bad guy. You want to catch him.
I happened to be at the Port Melbourne police station at the same time as, I won't mention the bloke's name, but the detective who was in charge of this matter in Victoria. And he and I come from that old school sort of copper in Victoria at the time that, like, my mates Steve Tynan and Damien Eyre were knocked by crooks in Victoria. I was in the job just after the Russell Street bombing. I was at Collingwood Police Station when the Hoddle Street massacre, Julian Knight, happened. And we have no time for crooks. I have no time for thieves and liars and fraudsters.
Speaking of which, let's have a little bit more of Craig Thompson. This is Michael Smith interviewing Craig Thompson, August 1 last year. This is devastating, this encounter. Have a listen.
You were the boss of the Health Services Union, responsible for your members' money. You believe that a credit card issued by the union was used to procure the services of prostitutes, with your driver's licence number on the back of the voucher, by the way. You formed the belief that somebody must have forged your signature, and you didn't go straight to police?
Well, these are events that occurred. The revelation of these events occurred after I had left.
Well, hang on a sec, mate. You get your credit card statement. You have a look. Oh, $2,475 keyword. What's that? You say to your PA. She says, oh, it's a hookers agency in Sydney. And you go, oh, fair enough. No worries. Just pay that one.
Well, things don't work quite like that. But
well, hang on, mate. You've got responsibility for your members' money. You're the boss of the union. Your personal credit card with your name on it, you get the statement back. $2,475 would raise somebody's eyebrows. And you as the boss signing that thing off, you just say, oh, no, just pay that. No, that's no worries. You didn't query it?
Michael, there are a lot of things that I queried.
Oh, in terms of damage control, in terms of defences of allegations, I mean, it is so absurd what we are being led to believe. Let's just talk about that for a moment. Yeah. The weird and wonderful world of Craig Thompson's fantasy land. I mean, it is bizarre.
Mate, in the police stations that I worked in, you would interview a number of crooks in any shift. And you pull them in, sit down, you're not obliged to say anything unless you wish to do so. Old manual typewriters in those days. And just ask them the questions, type down exactly what they say. If I had a crook like Craig Thompson, and I will say that he's a crook, in front of me giving the answers that he'd gave, I'd go, you beauty. Because what court is going to hear those answers without thinking, oh, this bloke's full of it. Yeah. Absolutely full of it. I just can't believe that our Parliament and our Prime Minister doesn't act in the way that a normal person would and say, mate, you got the flick.
Yeah, this was part of the interview that caused him problems and which many people then said, well, hang on, why did he do this interview anyway when he admitted that it was him with the final rubber stamp to allow these charges to go through the department, go through the HSU. Have a listen.
Craig, when you got the credit card statement for that month with $2,475 appearing...
Michael, I've said the difficulty I have in terms of going through these issues.
Hang on a sec, mate. It's just a simple question. A simple question, Craig.
Mm-hmm.
Did you authorise it getting paid?
In terms of the actual bills that have been paid, yes, I authorise all the credit card bills.
That was a game changer because it was the first time Craig Thompson conceded that it was him who authorised the dodgy payments.
And I went on to say, why did you authorise it? And you said, well, on the face of it, I didn't realise what it was. I mean, turn it up.
How has he changed his approach from August 1 to what we saw on Saturday with Laurie Oakes?
He has invented this monstrous conspiracy theory that, the old Mission Impossible team. Remember old Bernie, the black bloke? He's put on the latex rubber mask and he's fronted up with the Craig Thompson mobile phone, the Craig Thompson credit card, the Craig Thompson driver's licence, the Craig Thompson latex mask. He's fronted up in front of the hooker.
I mean, it's so bizarre that, I don't mean to keep using that word, but as his colleagues, wouldn't you find it hard to stare him in the eye and think, hang on, just have a listen here. This is Kathy Jackson. There was some fascinating radio this afternoon with Chris Smith where Kathy Jackson and Chris Smith went through the Laurie Oakes interview A to Z, chapter and verse. And have a listen. I found this quite insightful what Kathy Jackson had to say about Craig Thompson.
The sad thing is I think he actually does believe it. I think he'd pass a polygraph test.
You reckon he would pass a polygraph?
Yeah. I think he actually believes it.
It is the old George Costanza. If you keep on saying it, if you keep on believing it, it's true. Well, what about a polygraph? I'm guessing there's been no suggestion from Mr. Thompson that he'd make himself available for one of them.
No, Craig, listen, if you're fair income, old mate, slip down to the shopping centre on a Friday arvo. There'll be a JP there, with a felt table, and just sign a statutory declaration. We'll just add that to the list of offences. He's full of it. I mean, why are we bothering with this bloke?
Where's it going to go next?
It will go before a court of competent jurisdiction in Victoria, subsequent from the placing of charges against this bloke, I would suggest to you. The points of proof in relation to proving a charge of obtaining a financial advantage by deception are pretty clear. You've got to prove the bloke's identity. There'll be plenty of that. You've got to prove the dishonesty, who he has deceived, what financial advantage he acquired, did he defer, evade or reduce a debt. And the detectives who are working on this matter are masters. They will act in the interests of the people who've been done over here, and those are the poor buggers in the Health Services Union.
We do get a little bit sceptical from time to time, if not very sceptical, about whether or not people, particularly if they've got a white collar around their neck, like a politician would, whether or not they will actually end up facing justice, or whether there will just be and on the track record here with Craig Thompson, I mean, he's weaseled his way out of every little chapter along the way, even when it's been obvious to all of us.
No. What he has done is avail himself of the protections that have been put in place methodically by this Labor government in Canberra, so that people in trade unions are treated differently from anybody else who knocks off stuff from their employer. It's a disgrace, an absolute abject disgrace, that he has not been treated from the start as would any other common thief or liar. That is the way the country ought be run, so that we're all equal in the face of the law. Now, today, this man is right in the slot, in the crosshairs, with seasoned detectives who will pursue him in the way that they would pursue any other common criminal in Victoria.
It seems like a week doesn't go by before we hear more developments, but when do you expect that, if, as you suspect, is a possibility that we're going to hear some very big news on Craig Thompson in relation to the Victorian Police?
Yeah.
How far away is that?
Mate, well, look, we're entitled to, as a member of the community, I am entitled to have an expectation that the detectives employed, paid for by taxpayers in Victoria, to pursue this matter are going to act properly. They won't neglect their duty. They'll go and tap the bloke on the shoulder, bring him in for an interview. At the conclusion of that, they will say these words: "You're not obliged to say anything further unless you wish to do so. You will be charged with the offences of zat, zat, zat." They'll detail them. You got anything to say? Thank you very much. Give me your fingerprints. Stand there. We're going to take a photo of you. Watch your fingers. Clang goes the door.
I look forward to it. You should be on radio. Michael Smith, thank you very much for coming in the studio.
Good to see you, Ben.
Michael Smith, who conducted a lot of those early investigations into Craig Thompson.